Hi everyone, welcome to Dear BAMf, the show for PR and marketing pros like you, hosted by Beck Bamberger of BAM. BAM is a communications agency that believes stories move the world. We move stories forward for technology-driven brands that challenge, change, and create entire industries. Today, on the Dear BAMf podcast, we're talking with Caitlin Epstein, Director of Public Relations at Twilio Inc. Developers and businesses use Twilio to make communications relevant and contextual by embedding messaging, voice, and video capabilities directly into their software applications. Caitlin began her career in the agency world, partnering with companies to create and implement dynamic communication campaigns. Let's dive in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dear BAMf, the podcast for PR marketing pros such as yourself. We're deep in season 2 and have had just a fantastic lineup. Today, in fact, speaking of, is Caitlin Epstein, who is joining us from Twilio, as you guys just heard. Hi, Caitlin.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And especially right now, I know this was out in Q1, but we're talking in right upon us November, crazy time. Lots of things are going on. We got lots of good, juicy questions today. So we're going to get into that in a second, but how are you doing? And tell us about Twilio.
I'm great. For those who don't know Twilio is a customer engagement platform, which means any business or nonprofit or organization who needs to reach their customers digitally, they can turn to Twilio's platform to do that. And when we say engage, we mean send text messages, phone calls, video, chat. For those who maybe are less technical, the way you probably interact with Twilio and may not even know it, if you've ever spoken to your Uber driver on the phone when they're waiting outside, that phone call is powered by Twilio. If you've ever gotten a text message reservation confirmation with OpenTable, that's Twilio. Yes. If you've ever maybe, a lot of us are ordering in food in the pandemic. If you've ever gotten something from DoorDash or Postmates on the status of your order, that's Twilio. Or even if you did a telehealth visit with your doctor, a lot of times those video visits are powered by Twilio. So that's Twilio's platform. And we always say a lot of people don't know Twilio because we're infrastructure, but most people interact with Twilio every day.
It's so true. It reminds me a bit of Plaid in terms of banking.
Exactly.
You don't even know about Plaid. You just know your banking's working. So good overview. That's a great way to articulate for the consumer where they're seeing it, yet it's invisible.
That's exactly right. So I think last year we powered over 1 trillion interactions across the platform. So it's pretty widespread. The company's global. We have over
publicly traded
as of 2016. And probably a lot of the experiences you have with the apps on your phone have a Twilio element to them.
Yes. Caitlin, what are you just most proud of accomplishing in this last 12 months here, especially in COVID climate?
Yeah, crazy time for all of us comms people. I think what I'm most proud of is when the pandemic hit, Twilio actually started seeing a surge of organizations who, as their doors shut, had to figure out a new way of reaching their customers or their patients or their students or whatever. And they had to do that digitally. And that's what a lot of companies turn to Twilio to do, is to build those experiences. And so my team, we started seeing this trend early on in COVID, probably March timeframe, where we started seeing, hospitals coming to us to build telehealth, or educators in schools building new ways to talk to their students or their teachers about homework assignments and how to educate their students remotely. And my team saw that as an opportunity. Obviously, we wanted to get PR for what was going on with the company, but we thought, all these companies are struggling and fearing that they may not survive this pandemic, and our platform could really be a solution for that. So what my team did was we partnered really closely with sales. We had a weekly call with them to just find out what is the most innovative things being built on the Twilio platform. And we started pumping out as much as we could to tell those customer stories to the media. And it was great press, of course, but what was more fun for us, and I think what made us feel really good, was, we would have a story published about a hospital who was using Twilio video to keep people out of waiting rooms and instead do digital visits. And then we started seeing a bunch of other healthcare organizations come to us and try and mirror that same experience. So I think by showcasing all these customer stories and really showing like how our platform could help businesses survive the pandemic, we were really helping a lot of organizations build things they had never thought was possible. And that was really fun. That was like a cool way. We all want to get great press stories, and that's always a driver for PR people. But for us as a company, we felt like we were kind of able to contribute to the solution and help people survive by really telling those customer stories. I always think telling the customer stories is the most interesting way to tell our story anyway. So that was probably what I'm most proud of this year. We did a lot of that customer story.
Nice. Good. For every comms person, you hope you're having this dream moment where you get customer stories and it's about something positive and they're having success and they're really psyched about using your product or service and all those great things. So that is good to hear. That's not everybody's story this year, of course.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of, okay, so as it's related to positive stories and helping people propel their businesses forward, is there any favorite way in which you like to tell stories? We're all about storytelling, of course.
Yes, of course. I've always said that the best PR stories are ones that you can put a human face to.
Yeah.
I think especially in the tech world where we are or where I am, you get a lot of pressure to tell product stories or to like pitch these more technical things. And like Twilio is especially technical.
Yeah. So and you don't see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you get a lot of pressure to do that. But I think the most interesting stories are the ones that you can really put a human face to. We did a lot of that in our storytelling for the companies that were using Twilio for COVID. We tried to showcase the builder within each organization to sort of share like this person had this idea and this is what spurred it and this is how they built it. I think those stories are the most interesting. You always have to like figure out the human element. I'll actually tell you my favorite story I've ever gotten that I think simplifies it. So maybe 2 years ago now, my company Twilio acquired SendGrid, which was an email platform.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do any press at signing for whatever reason. And then at close, we were trying to pitch the story about why we're doing this acquisition. And reporters were basically saying, well, the news is already out because you signed. And so my team was like, what kind of access can we give a reporter to make this juicier?
Yeah.
And we went to our CEO, my CEO, Jeff, and the CEO of the company we acquired. I remember this vividly. We were like, tell us the love story. How did you two court each other? And how did this deal happen? And they had a great story about how they happened to be on this leadership trip. They both were a member of some group where they were at this leadership trip. Mm-hmm. And there was a breakfast and the one CEO, Samir, couldn't make it. And so my CEO, as a nice gesture, went and bought him a breakfast burrito and brought it back to the room.
Oh, are you kidding?
So the story we pitched was the $3 billion breakfast burrito. And,
that's fantastic.
Forbes wrote this great story about this courtship of two CEOs who happen to both be independent leaders and peers, and how this nice gesture really gave the other CEO confidence that he was joining a good company. And we always say, like, that headline, I can't remember exactly what the headline was, something about a breakfast burrito.
Well, the $3 billion breakfast burrito.
Yeah, one of the best stories. So I always say that. Sometimes you feel like you run into these roadblocks where a reporter even might tell you, like, this isn't really interesting, like the news is out there. But that's the question I always ask. I'm like, okay, what's the human story here? What's the tension? Where's the face we can put to this techie news? And I think that's the best way to tell a story always.
Oh, well, anytime you get a burrito in there, heck yeah. Heck yeah. I love it. Kudos to you, because that is super creative. And had you not asked, you would have probably never known. So a lot of this, we talk about this on this show particularly, is you got to dig around because you don't know what nuggets and little stories and beautiful visual stories are also embedded in just doing some interviews. And then you come to find out, oh, wow, this one thing, because you don't really get to hear all these great aspects. So that's great.
I also think a lot of CEOs, especially in earlier days, maybe they're less comfortable talking to reporters or whatever. They never want, or often I find CEOs don't want to take credit they don't think people are going to be interested in like the personal anecdote of their story. They don't find themselves so interesting. They want the company to speak for themselves or the products to speak for themselves. But I always really challenge that. It's so important to have.
Same.
Yeah. I think it's really important for storytelling.
Well, let's dive into our questions. We've got 3 today. They're kind of meaty. So here we go. First one. Dear BAMf, my client recently had half of its company acquired, and the original team is now doing the work to get the new brand up and running. We offered to help with the initial announcement, as well as a second announcement once the new brand is ready to launch, but are now in the tricky spot of having to say no to this client when asked to help us with more tasks. How do I tell them? If they want our help, they'll need to engage with us in a fresh contact without burning the bridge. Resources are limited. So I want to be helpful, but need to be mindful of my team's time too. I feel like this is the age-old scope creep situation. Mm-hmm.
I think being on the agency side, you have a lot of angst about asking for more money. But if you really take a step back, I mean, this is not a personal relationship. These are business relationships. And you have to get paid for what you do. I mean, nobody should be asking you to work for free. I also think sometimes on the client side, you have so many other stakeholders you're dealing with that you're probably not thinking like, oh, I think the agency did more hours of work this month. So it's really up to you on the agency side to be super upfront about the spend. And, you know, if that burns a bridge, it's probably not a healthiest client relationship anyway, because you know, what company thinks they don't have to pay for their vendor?
Exactly.
What I would say is something that I did when I was on the agency side and my agency does for me that really keeps it all in check is they just send an email every week. Like, this is where we're tracking towards our budget. This is what we have left in the month. And then if we're running hot at the end of the month, they always just say, you know, this is the list of activities on the list. And based on the budget, these are the ones we can do. And I just think you have to be super upfront about that. And, you know, it helps me because, to be honest, like being on the receiving end of that now, I'm often like, oh, I didn't even realize we were running hot. Thank you. I can either pay you more or let's drop these certain priorities. So I would say, you know, you just be upfront about it and remember that you're not expected to work for free.
Exactly.
Another thing that I got a lot of visibility when I came in-house is when you compare PR spend to other brand awareness spend that companies do, whether that's advertising or demand gen or, you know, PR is such good bang for your buck. And you shouldn't underestimate that. PR is so powerful. And I think companies do realize that what they're spending on PR is probably not as huge as the part of the marketing budget as some other things. So you got to get paid for what you're worth in the work you're doing.
Exactly. I'm 100% aligned to that. Also, way to have a proactive team that's telling you, it's not your job as the client to be like, let me tally up how much, you don't know that stuff. So for the agency side to be proactive, come to the client, say, hey, here's where we're at. Here's where we're at. Here's where we're at. Constantly giving that expectation and that information is super valuable. I think people fall into like this person perhaps where, okay, you've never showcased this data and now you're going to drop it on them perhaps and say, oh, actually we've overspent for the last 3.5 months, you know, more than 25%. And they're going to be like, huh? You know, they have no idea. So education and the consistency up front is going to save you from a situation like that.
I agree. I think when I started managing teams at the agency, I remember I would cancel time at the end of the month, basically just scared and to ask the client. And I remember my boss at the time, Barbara Bates, who runs Hotwire PR, she goes, you know, you're working for free every time you cancel time. And that's fine. That's your choice, but you're working for free. And that wasn't forever. It's true. We don't work for free. That's my takeaway.
Yes. Way to say that. We had someone here who used to say, if you're going to the bakery or you own the bakery, why would you give someone a loaf of bread and have them walk outside? They didn't pay for it. Why would you do that? Well, it's the same thing with your time. So don't be giving away bread.
I love that. And you know what? The client hired you because you're the expert. So they
exactly. All right. Next question. Dear BAMf, I'm at a large health tech company, which has seen a big boost due to COVID. Despite our record growth this year, our budget was just handed down from the CMO, whom I report to, and it hasn't increased at all. We went through 2 months of brainstorming and thinking all of these great new story angles and concepts we can do. So this was a big letdown to me and my comms team of 5. Maybe I just need to get over the disappointment, but I'm struggling with a let's do more message while I've been giving nothing more to work with.
Right. I totally understand.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We've all been here. I would say tactically, what I would immediately do is send a revised plan back to the CMO or whoever your decision maker of the budget is, and basically say, with the budget that you've given me, this is what we plan to accomplish, and then have an addendum. Though we would love to up-level this program, and our recommendations for doing that are these. These are the concepts, these are the plans, these are the pitches. However, we will not be able to accomplish these in the current budget. It will cost this. And just really outline it. I find internally, at least at Twilio, our head of marketing and CMO, like they're figuring out a million puts and takes to figure out where to spend money. And they're not reading our PR plan to the T and thinking about every single cost. But if you really articulate it to them, this is what I think we can accomplish. And really, this is the missed opportunity of what we can't accomplish with this limited budget. That's how you can get more dollars. But you have to make a case for yourself. And that's what I would do. I would make it super clear what you can do within that budget and what you can't. I would say the worst thing you can do is say, thank you. We're going to try and fit everything into this budget anyway, because that's when you get in trouble.
Oh, big time. Oh,
you try
do
and
not
accomplish something.
Do that. Do not fall prey to that horribleness. No. So
what's even worse is if you were to accomplish that anyway in the limited budget the next year, they're like, how much did we accomplish? We didn't even need more money. So you got to really outline what you need.
We just had this with a client. The team knocked it out of the park. And I'm talking at like 7x the KPIs. Mm-hmm. And that was for the whole year. They are so thrilled. And then the conversation came around of like, okay, so budget next year. Yeah, we're thinking of this, this, and this, but we don't want to increase anything. But can we do what we just did, the 7x and more? And no is the answer. No. And we just said, okay, so one of the people on the team said, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm getting punished for excelling. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the situation sometimes, because you set a bar and now they're like, clear it again. Oh, and by the way, and do a twirl while you're up there too. So It's a dangerous situation. Yeah. So be firm in what you can execute. Mm-hmm.
You really have to outline what's possible in each budget, or you'll never make a case for more.
Yep. Last question here, Caitlin. Dear BAMf, I've had a great agency and I'm happy to be on the agency side of things with a situation like this, though challenging. I've had a client now for more than 2 years. I've maintained a good relationship with the CEO and 2 others on the board, but the company is now onboarding its 3rd CMO. I've weathered the storm with the 2 others and have thankfully been able to show results despite these changes. How can I onboard the next one and somehow have input, if at all, on making the new one stick and stay? I'm also slightly concerned that one of these new hires will come in and win over the CEO to insist that we, quote, change things up with another agency. What are your thoughts? Have you seen this before, Caitlin?
Yeah, this one's tough. I think the great thing about this question is the line about how they also have a great relationship with the CEO and 2 board members. Mm-hmm. I think when you're on the agency side, it's really important that you have contacts in the company outside of your direct contact. We
call this the 3-on-3 rule. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, because otherwise that person leaves or something happens to that person.
Yes.
Totally, you're unknown. I think what I would do is, before that CMO comes in, set up a meeting with that CEO just to touch base and make sure that they know you're in support of them and what you're recommending in the meantime. And then when the CMO joins, it's sort of how I answered the other question, I think, but put together a presentation that sort of says, you're new here, but this is the historical background of what we've done. This is our results, and this is what has worked and didn't work with prior CMOs. And this is our recommendation moving forward. And make yourself seen as sort of like you have the tribal knowledge because you've watched a few other people go through this role, and make sure that you're seen as a partner to that new CMO. Like, I can help you get to this next level because I've seen what's worked and didn't. Sort of position it that way. As for the part about them replacing you or changing things up with a new agency, I think that's a fear that every agency has and is also pretty warranted, honestly.
Yes.
Because a lot of times people come in and they do replace the agency, and that's really unavoidable. But I think right off the bat, showing your results and proactively sort of taking the lead of this is what I think it's going to take for you to bring the company to the next level as the new marketing leader. and sort of showing your worth right off the bat. That's what you have to do instead of waiting for direction from a new leader.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's tough. And I find it really hard when there's a lot of change with your client and you're sort of trying to ride the wave. But I think having those other relationships in the organization is important.
Yeah. So this person's in a great spot in terms of that. You're more than 3-on-3. And by that, I mean, I've mentioned this before in the show, but we have our client know at least 3 of us on your team. And then we want to know at least 3 people over there. Again, not the direct report, but okay, head of sales, let's say, or the CEO, or the VC who sits on the board that referred us, something like that. And you always maintain that. One, you don't want someone going on a 3-month vacation or sabbatical or mat leave, paternity leave or something and be like, oh, wait, oh, shoot, or drastically more, someone gets axed or someone moves on or whatever this thing is. So that's why you want to do that. So good job for this person.
You'll do so much better work also if you have those different point of views into the company.
Exactly.
Your contact has a certain perspective on how things are and what's the story and what's important. If you're talking, like you said, to a head of sales or also to a CEO or a VC,
CTO,
whoever, you're getting a totally different view. And that's really important for your own storytelling.
Yeah. Yes. So in addition to that, I'd say the very partnership oriented approach that you're taking here, which is like, hey, bring this person in. Hey, let me give you some context. Here's where we've been. Here's what we've done. Don't wait for them to come to you is what I would definitely say. Don't wait to be the passive one and give them any reason for them to say, well, what the heck is that agency doing here? You take the baton and lead them through it and provide more info, the better, I think. You don't want to leave a scrape of doubt in their mind that you guys haven't been performing and you haven't been a phenomenal partner through all these transitions. And by the way, they should be aware. Hopefully they're not walking in blind going, oh, wait a second. There were 2 other people here before me. What happened? Hopefully they have context, but yours will be super invaluable, I would imagine, here as the external agency side.
Yeah. I think overall on the client side, it's really important to you're only going to be successful if you think of your agency as a real partner of yours.
Yes.
If you think of them as doing your grunt work or something and they don't have the connection with your business, they're not going to do
Not good.
Mm-hmm. You have, at Twilio, I love my agency, and we have members of the agency on our weekly communications call. They sit in on a lot of our planning. And in this old fashioned days when we went into offices,
what was that like?
We had someone in the office once a week, and it was great because they really feel the culture. They get to meet the executives, and an agency does better work when they're part of the team. So that's
true.
really important, I think.
And the last thing I'll just mention is, okay, this person, they're walking in new. They need to prove that they're here to stay. They're going to do a great job. The pressure's on them to really be fantastic. Any way that you can help them win is going to go a long way. So keep that in mind. Shepherd them along, basically.
Right. And you have the historical knowledge. That's what you bring.
Yes.
That person doesn't really
That's
have.
Power. That's a lot of power.
I would say you can say, this worked, this didn't. That's powerful.
Very much so. Powerful. One of our core values. There you go.
I love that.
Oh, Caitlin, thank you for being on today. Amidst all the busyness that you have, there's no comms person who's not busy right now. So we appreciate it.
Of course. I'm happy to be invited. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Dear BAMf, the advice podcast for PR and marketing pros like you. Our show was created by BAM, a PR and marketing agency headquartered in San Diego and New York City. The music you're enjoying today was composed by Tiffany Dizon, produced by Daniel Kessner, and played by San Diego Symphony's Art of Alon. If you have a tough PR and marketing question you'd like us to answer, write to us at bamtheagency.com/Dear BAMf. Don't forget the F. If you'd like to get notified of our latest episodes, subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.